The news reports are a constant, agonizing loop on every channel, their flickering images a monument to my failure. Police search for missing teen Chloe Davison, one Chiron blares. On social media, her face is everywhere, a digital ghost haunting my every scroll. They don't know the truth. Nobody does. But I do. I see it in the shadows of my room, and the reflection in the dark screen. It's a guilt that eats me alive. Because I'm the one who led the monster to her door. It all started on one of those nights where sleep feels like a distant shore, and you're just adrift in the endless, dark ocean of the internet. I was clicking through dead links on a forum I hadn't visited in years, a relic from the web's forgotten past. It was a digital graveyard, full of abandoned threads and forgotten conversations. But I kept digging, drawn deeper into the web's neglected corners, chasing a nostalgia that had long since soured. That's when I saw it. A hyperlink, glowing in ominous purple against the forum's dingy background. The text read, R.A.R.E. Phineas and Ferb. Lost episode, The Grounding. A jolt of morbid curiosity, a stupid, childish impulse, guided my hand. I clicked it. The download bar crawled across my screen, a slow, green harbinger of doom. I had no idea that with every passing kilobyte, I was sealing not just my fate, but Chloe's. I was downloading a nightmare into reality. The file finished, and I opened it. The familiar, upbeat theme song began, but it was horribly wrong. The notes were discordant, twisted into a grotesque parody of the original tune. The animation was just as corrupted. It flickered and stuttered. The normally vibrant colors of Danville washed out and faded into a sickly, nightmarish palette. This wasn't the show I remembered. This was a perversion, a tainted echo from a world gone wrong. The episode's plot began simply enough. Candace, in her usual frantic pursuit, finally managed to show her mom one of the boy's wild inventions. For once, she succeeded. Linda Flynn Fletcher, with an uncharacteristically stern expression, grounded Phineas and Ferb for the rest of the summer. As their mother walked away, leaving the boys alone in their room, Phineas turned his head slowly. He looked directly at the camera, a smile spreading across his face. But his eyes were chillingly vacant, two black, empty pits. The scene cut abruptly to the backyard. The usual sight of a fantastical roller coaster or a rocket to the moon was gone. In its place stood a contraption that belonged in a horror film, a terrifying, jigsaw-like device. It was a cold, metal chair, and aimed directly at it was a large, rusted industrial saw blade poised to descend. This wasn't an invention for summer fun. It was an instrument of torture, a monument to cruelty built in the heart of suburbia. Just then, Candace wandered into the yard, her expression shifting from triumphant to confused as she took in the horrific scene. Before she could react, a heavy metal collar sprang from the chair, snapping shut around her neck with a sickening clang. It chained her to the device, her brief moment of victory turning into a trap. Panic flooded her features, her eyes wide with a primal fear I had never seen on a cartoon character before. Phineas stepped into the frame, his movements stiff and unnatural. He began to explain the rules of his sick game, his voice a cold, robotic monotone completely devoid of its usual cheerful energy. Every time Candace screamed for their mom, he explained, the saw would inch closer. He wanted to see how long she could last, how much she truly wanted to be saved. It was a game of endurance, with her life as the prize. As the blade began to whir, the animation underwent a terrifying transformation. It became hyper-realistic, the focus shifting to the raw, unadulterated terror in Candace's eyes. I could see every tear track, every trembling muscle in her face as the spinning metal descended with agonizing slowness. Her screams were no longer cartoonish. They were real, filled with genuine agony. Right before the blade was about to make contact, the screen cut to pitch black. The file closed itself. That night, I woke up screaming, drenched in a cold sweat. The lines between the cartoon and my reality had blurred into a horrifying new landscape. I wasn't in my bed. I was strapped to a cold metal chair. A new trap from Phineas's twisted imagination surrounding me. The nightmares had begun. And the lost episode wasn't just on my computer anymore. It was in my head, and it was starting to bleed into my world. The single scar was just the beginning. The nightmares grew worse, becoming elaborate montages of torture scripted by some unseen, malevolent force. One night, I was relentlessly chased through an Escher-like backyard by a giant, sentient bowling ball with Ferb's face crudely painted on its surface. I woke up gasping, my legs covered in deep, inexplicable bruises. Another time, I found myself strapped to a massive, spinning wheel. A demonic version of Candace, her eyes glowing red, threw sharpened darts at me with terrifying accuracy. When I awoke, a fresh, stinging puncture wound marred my shoulder, a physical souvenir from the night's torment. Sleep was no longer a refuge, but a place I was dragged to, kicking and screaming, every single night. My waking life started to deteriorate just as rapidly. The person staring back at me from the mirror became a gaunt, hollow-eyed stranger. In my university lectures, I'd jolt awake from jarring micronaps, convinced the professor's droning voice was the sinister worry of a new, terrible invention being assembled just for me. The world outside my head felt fuzzy and unreal. I'd see my best friend, Mark, watching me from across the crowded common room, his face a mask of concern and confusion. He didn't understand, and how could he? My reality was bleeding into a cartoon fever dream, and I was the only one who could see the seams unraveling. The pressure from the outside world began to mount. The calls from my parents became more frequent, their voices strained with worry. My grades were in a freefall, tumbling from a solid B average to a collection of D's and F's. My mom's voice on the phone sounded like it was being broadcast from another planet, a distant, tinny plea begging me to focus, reminding me how far I was falling behind. I'd mumble promises to try harder, to study more. But the concepts of deadlines and exams felt like distant memories from a life I no longer lived. My only curriculum was survival. The breaking point arrived after a particularly brutal night. This time, the episode involved a shrink ray and what felt like 1,000 tiny, robotic ants crawling over my minimized body, their metallic legs leaving trails of fire on my skin. I woke up screaming, my arms covered in dozens of small, red bite-like marks. The pain was real. The evidence was real. I couldn't do it alone anymore. My hands shaking uncontrollably, I grabbed my phone and dialed Mark. "You have to come over," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "Right now, I have proof." He arrived 20 minutes later, his shock at my disheveled appearance painfully visible. I didn't waste time with pleasantries, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward my desk. "The episode," I said, my words a frantic torrent. "It's real. I downloaded it. I can show you." I clicked frantically on my downloads folder, my heart pounding against my ribs. It was empty. I scrambled to my browser history, clicking the link from the forum. Page not found. The file, the link, the entire digital breadcrumb trail had simply erased itself. "It was here. I swear to God. Mark, it was right here," I screamed, a wave of desperate panic washing over me. I started tearing my room apart, flinging clothes and books, searching for a phantom hard drive, any shred of evidence. But as I turned back to Mark, I saw it in his eyes. He didn't see a victim telling the truth. He saw the frantic, sleepless guy from class, the friend his parents were worried about, spiraling into a complete psychotic breakdown. He solved a problem to be solved, not a story to be believed. The visit ended with Mark placing a gentle hand on my shoulder and promising to help me find a good therapist. The rejection was absolute, a clean, sharp cut that severed my last connection to a shared reality. I was completely, terrifyingly alone with my tormentors. That night, as I sat staring blankly at the dark, reflective surface of my computer monitor, a single, silent frame flickered on the screen for less than a second. It was Phineas, his trademark triangular head silhouetted against a black void, his empty, hearty smile wider and more menacing than ever. A silent, mocking acknowledgement of his perfect, untraceable crime. The ringing of my phone shattered the quiet of my apartment, a sharp, unwelcome sound. It was my mother. "Your professors called me," she began. Her voice a strained mix of confusion and a disappointment that felt heavier than any anger she could have shown. "They said you're failing every class. What's happening to you?" I could only offer a weak apology before ending the call. The life she was so concerned about felt distant, like it belonged to a different person entirely. Not the one trapped in this waking nightmare. A wave of desperation washed over me, and I threw myself back into the digital world, diving deep into the sprawling forums of Reddit. My fingers danced frantically across the keyboard, typing in frantic searches for anyone who might understand what I was going through. Any sign that I wasn't losing my mind? For what felt like an eternity, I found nothing but deadened threads and cheap, fictional horror stories that felt like a mockery of my terrifying reality. Just as I was about to give up, I saw it. A single, archived post from a year ago, with a chilling title, "It's Not a Dream. The scars are real." The author described my torment with terrifying accuracy, these specific, sadistic traps laid out in the episode. The physical wounds that remained after waking, and the mysterious video file that would vanish without a trace. The user's account had been deleted, but a cryptic email address was left behind at the end of the post. "This is not a GAME@mail.com. With hands that shook uncontrollably, I composed a short, desperate email containing only one sentence. I woke up with the scars. The response was almost instantaneous. "Tomorrow, noon. The Blackwood Cafe." The man I met there was a chilling premonition of my own future. He was skeletal, with restless, haunted eyes that darted around the room. A living ghost tormented by the very same demon that had latched onto me. He leaned in, his voice a dry whisper, and laid out the horrifying truth. The episode, he explained, wasn't just a video. It was a parasite. It attached itself to a host, feeding on their fear, and manifesting the nightmares into physical reality. "It will kill you," he stated, his voice cracking. "Either your mind will completely shatter from the terror, or one of the accidents in your sleep will finally go too far. How do I stop it?" I pleaded, the words catching in my throat. He moved closer, his eyes glowing with a dreadful certainty. "You can't stop it. You can only pass it on. When you reach your absolute lowest point, the file will reappear on your computer. You have to find someone else, make them watch it. It's the only way to free yourself from the curse." I stumbled out of the cafe, his words echoing in my mind. A poisonous solution to an impossible problem. My thoughts didn't drift to a stranger or an enemy like Mark. Instead, they landed on Chloe, my ex-girlfriend. The memory of her betrayal was still a raw, open wound. For weeks, my phone had been a constant source of her buzzing texts. An endless stream of, "I'm so sorry, and can we please just talk?" She had sworn she would do anything to make things right between us. As if summoned by my dark contemplation, my computer chimed back in my room. The video file was there, sitting on my desktop. The curse was presenting me with my escape, and Chloe, with her desperate pleas for forgiveness, was presenting me with the perfect victim. My thumb hovered over her most recent message. I began to type my reply. "You're right. We need to talk. Come over." My thumb hovered over Chloe's name. A final moment of hesitation before I sealed her fate and pressed call. Her voice came through the speaker, a fragile thing laced with a cautious optimism that twisted my stomach into knots. "Hey, I wasn't expecting you to call." I told her she needed to come over, that we had to talk. "Really?" The relief in her voice was a palpable wave, crashing over my own cold resolve. "Why the change of heart?" I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "I just miss you," I lied, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. "I'll be right there," she said, her voice bright with a promise I knew she couldn't keep. "I promise I'll make everything up to you." The line went dead, leaving me alone with the heavy weight of her promise and the insidious poison of my plan. When she arrived, her smile was a beacon of hope in the gloom of my apartment. I didn't waste time. I just played the video. I watched her face as the grotesque images flickered to life on the screen. The hope in her eyes quickly curdled into confusion, which then morphed into a raw, primal terror. She didn't scream or cry out. She was too frozen, a statue of disbelief. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a silent sob that shook her entire body. When the final, distorted frame faded to black, she stood up, a ghost haunting my living room. Without a single word, she turned and walked out the door. The file was gone from my computer. The transfer was complete. I had done it. That night, I was pulled into the nightmare one last time, but not as a participant. I was an observer, standing in a dark, cavernous room that smelled of rust and decay. Across the void, I saw Chloe, her wrists shackled to a damp stone wall, weeping uncontrollably. This time, she could see me, her eyes locking onto mine with desperate recognition. "Help me," she cried, her voice echoing in the oppressive gloom. A grotesque version of Phineas materialized beside me, its cartoonish features twisted into a malevolent grin. "Want to set her free?" He chuckled, his voice a horrifying distortion of the cheerful character I once knew. He pointed a three-fingered hand towards a feral, snarling Ferb, its eyes glowing with predatory hunger. "Just let him take your hand, a small price to pay." I stared down at my own hand, then across the chasm at Chloe's terrified, pleading face. An icy fear paralyzed me. I knew it was just a dream, a final, cruel trick of the curse. But the threat of pain felt terrifyingly real, the choice impossible. I was caught, trapped between the specter of my own mutilation and the girl I had knowingly condemned to this hell. My hesitation stretched for an eternity, a silent, damning answer to the demon's offer. "You're too late," Phineas chuckled, the sound dripping with satisfaction. In the distance, the feral Ferb lunged, not at me, but at the shackled figure of Chloe. I woke up with a jolt, the sound of her final, blood-curdling scream ringing in my ears. It was a sound that marked the end of the curse and the beginning of my own damnation. The constant gnawing dread is gone now, but it's been replaced by a hollow, aching guilt that's 100 times worse. I am free from the nightmare, but my world has become a new kind of prison. Every telephone pole and storefront window is plastered with her face. Her bright, smiling picture on the missing flyers blurs as I walk past, a constant, stabbing reminder. The police came by, asking questions I answered with numb, practiced lies. I am no longer haunted by a dream. I am haunted by reality, by a scream I can still hear in the dead of night, and by a face I see on every street corner. I am free, but my soul is now a permanent missing person.